Hello class, we are in lesson number 11. We are phrasing today James chapter 4, verses 7 through 12. Now, right off the bat, you'll see that my semantic functions are differing from Blomberg's. I'm taking these imperatives at face value, and I like to mark them out as command 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in that way, that helps me when I structure my sermons. For example, I put down here 8 items for curing verbal conflict. You may want to do those differently, and that's okay. But just notice that these are commands. So let's compare them with Blomberg here. Blomberg is using the inference, and he's tying this back to verse 6, where we saw Proverbs 3, verse 34. Either way you take it would be fine. But he says, submit yourselves to God and resist the devil, and here's the result, and he will flee from you. Command number 3, draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Command number 4, cleanse your hands, sinners, and purify. Notice this is hagnisate from the word to sanctify, right? So we're translating it with a different semantic function here, a different semantic shade of meaning. So purify your hearts, you double-minded ones. Okay? Now he's going to then expand in 4:9 that the NIV says, be miserable, and another way you could also translate that lament. Okay, lament, be sad and weep. Okay, restatement of those commands in 4:9 is to let your laughter be turned into sadness or mourning, and your joy into gloominess. Again, restating the command in verse 10. Humble yourselves. Now, notice that is a passive imperative. So you could translate that, be humbled, right? It's if you humble yourselves, you're taking that, that would be like a middle, okay? So if you take this passive, remember aorist passives have their own form here. Theta, eta, you see the theta, eta on this passive right here. Let me just sort of block that out so you can see it. Be humbled before the Lord. That's the way I would translate that, because it's a true passive. Humble yourselves before the Lord. Be humbled before the Lord, and he will lift you up. Okay, or he will exalt you. Interesting. Here's the exhortation in 4:11. It's actually another command, so you could call this command number 5 if you wanted to, but it is exhortation. He says that we are not to speak evil. Don't speak evil of one another, brothers. The one speaking evil of brothers is the one, or the one judging his brother. The one speaking is speaking evil of the law and judges the law. Okay, so in other words, if we judge someone else, we are placing ourselves, we're judging the law. Okay, what else does he say? And if the law is, if you are judging the law, you are not doing the law, but you are a judge. Okay, then here's the clincher on this. In verse 12, there is one lawgiver and judge. And then here's your participle with the article, the one who is able to save and to destroy. Okay? But who are you? Notice your question mark here, the end. But who are you, the one judging your neighbor? Who are you who are judging your neighbor, as the NIV states it? All right, that's fairly straightforward again. It works out nicely into a sermon. And here is my sermon outline, the cause of verbal conflicts. First of all, there's the cure. And this is a part 2. In other words, I would have probably preached this whole 1 through 12 as one sermon. But we're into the cure now. Submit to God, resist the devil. And by the way, that is a great passage of Scripture to memorize and to pray on a daily basis. All right. Years ago, I memorized this. I had an opportunity to spend a couple of days in the presence of a great man of God, Stephen Olford, and he exhorted us to memorize these verses of Scripture and to pray them every day. And I've heard Charles Stanley pick up on this as well, that we should memorize this. Stanley says he prays this passage before he even gets out of bed in the morning. Not a bad habit to get into. Submit therefore to God, resist the devil, and he must flee. Draw near to God, he'll draw near to you. I took this right out of Scripture. You can preach this. This is the cure for keeping our hearts right and exiting verbal conflict. Okay? So then, proper interaction among the brethren. Boy, if we could get this into our churches, huh? Don't speak against brothers or sisters. This vicious cycle of trying to act like a judge happens like this. If you do, you're speaking against God's law. If you speak against God's law, you set yourself up in God's place as a judge. So if you're a judge, you're not a doer of the law. So it's an interesting argument there, is it not? There's only one who can save and destroy, so why would we want to take his place? Wow. This is a great passage of Scripture, and so we'll look forward to seeing your sermon outlines that you take from your phrasing.